Hello and welcome to the big picture. In what's being called a big relief for the Indian economy, India will receive normal rain during June to September during the southwest monsoon season. The Met Department said that rainfall will be 96% of the long period average and rain will be distributed fairly across the country. Now, anything between 96 and 104% of the LPA is considered as normal, and with 49% of India's workforce depending on agriculture for livelihood, this is of course a good sign. Also, the current year's forecast is majorly important for the agriculture sector, with initial reports pointing fingers towards the El Nino, which may happen perhaps during the later part of the year, and that's something we are looking forward. As far as figures are concerned, as far as data is concerned, we'll be watching out for that. So how do we make the most of the monsoons? And apart from agriculture, which are the other sectors that can gain from it? Well, joining us on the debate today, we have Dr. Haque, who is the former chairman of Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices. We also have Krishan Chaudhary, who is the president of Bhartiya Krishak Samaj, editorial director of Business Standard, Haque Bhattacharya, joining us in studio, and also senior editor of Economic Times, Himanshu as well. I'll come to the senior journalists in a bit because we'll of course be looking at each and every facet in more detail perhaps. But if I could come to you first, Mr. Chaudhary, these figures that at least the IMD is stating, is it encouraging farmers? Because that's of course one sector. Because now we are seeing that Tamil Nadu farmers protest that's going on in Jantar Mantar. Keeping all that in mind, is this a positive number?
Because water is the life for agriculture sector, and if rain-fed, especially for rain-fed area, including the Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu and all, it gives the relief to the farming community. And now for Kharif, the paddy is the main crop, and for oilseed crops, we can say the tilhan and groundnut, and for pulses, urad, moong, soybean, and for rain-fed area, cotton crops is very important crop, fiber area, and it will increase, it will affect on sugarcane productivity also.
Yes.
Because due to humidity, it affect all the crops. It reduces the cost of production in agriculture sector. It is the lifeline for our agriculture sector, I can say. And farmers always hopeful for the good monsoon. And if the monsoon is good, farmers feel that we will get the proper production in all crops. Therefore, it's an important factor.
Yeah, it's being seen as a good sign.
It's very important, especially for Indian economy depend on agriculture. It's a reality, and we should accept the reality. And monsoon gives the good productivity in all sector, especially not in Kharif, but pre-Rabi also.
Yes.
Just like gram, it is mustard. So it affects all.
Okay. Dr. Haque, do you agree? This is of course good figures. This is something to be positive about. But at the same time, even last year we saw a pretty decent monsoon, but we did see in Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, the situation still very grim. So we are trying to see, of course, on ways of how to make the most of the monsoons. How do you suggest that can happen?
Yeah, first of all, I should say that the average figure is always could be misleading. So unless the rainfall is well distributed over all the weeks or months in
a
the
clearer picture
season,
emerges in June,
and also all over the country, that problem will still remain. But apart from that, I will say that this is too early to predict accurately what is going to be the monsoon. It is good that IMD gives a good signal.
Yes.
If it is 96% of the normal rainfall long-term average, then I think it is going to be a good monsoon season this year, this way. And we can expect, if it is well distributed, as I said, over months or days, and also in all over the country, then probably I think you can say certainly we are going to have a good crop this year. Last year monsoon was good, and you can see as compared to 15-16, the food grain production itself jumped by 20 million tons, just food grain.
Yes.
It was 252 million tons both in 2014-15 and 15-16. And 2016-17, it is estimated to be 272 million tons. So you can see the impact of good monsoon that way. But even otherwise, unless that kind of huge deficit takes place, like as we had in 2002 or 2009, normally we have seen that Indian agriculture has developed some kind of resilience. If it is, deficient by a few percentage points, it did not matter much, because you will see that in 2013-14 it was a good rainfall. Rainfall was about 106 that way over the normal rainfall, and we had a production of about 257 million tons.
Yes.
And the drop in the worst year, when the average rainfall was 88% of the normal or 86% of the normal in 2014-15 and 15-16, it dropped by only 5 million tons. So, and so that way it does not become that kind of alarming situation. But if it comes like what happened in 2009, 78% of the normal, or 80% of the normal as it happened in 2002, then it is a cause for concern. So I think we should not be so much worried, but certainly if there is a good rainfall, well distributed rainfall, it is a very good sign. But as I said, it is too early to indicate.
Yeah, and that is what I would like to take to you. How do we get prepared then? Now you know that these are the predictions. This is how monsoons are most likely to be panned out across the country. We're looking at ways of how to be prepared and talking specifically about the agriculture sector and how it eventually, it pours down to other sectors as well, doesn't it? And there are certain challenges, of course, that the agriculture sector has faced as far as irrigation, methods are concerned, harvesting of rainwater is concerned. All that relates to irrigation, all that relates to, the agriculture sector. What are the challenges that they face, and why is it that successive governments have not been able to a large extent, address that problem?
Okay, just to start off, as Dr. Haque rightly pointed out, that these are early estimates, forecasts, and they will be revised by June. But even in an early estimate, you get you get some clear signals, and the signals come from two areas. One is you see a weakening El Nino.
Yes.
Along with that, you are seeing a strengthening Indian Ocean dipole. Now, if you look at the data for last 10 years, you see a strong El Nino and a positive Indian Ocean dipole. The impact of El Nino is neutralized to a great extent.
Okay.
But if you have a weak El Nino and a neutral Indian Ocean dipole, then you have a problem also.
Okay.
So this year, the good news is the early signs are that you are seeing a weakening El Nino and a strengthening Indian Ocean dipole. So it's a happy confluence.
Yes.
So I think the optimism that Krishan ji and
Dr.
Haque expressed, I entirely endorse that. But as you rightly said, there are challenges ahead of us, and the first challenge probably would be in the key infrastructure sector, that how do you make sure that our reservoir levels right now are working at a very poor levels.
Yes.
Now, if you have good rains, and 70% of India's precipitation happens in these 4 months, and you do not know, you don't have the wherewithal to catch this rainfall and channel them to reservoirs and groundwater replenishment, then I think it's an infrastructural challenge. That's the first challenge that comes to my mind, that we must be prepared. And
that's the challenge that we see in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu.
Absolutely. How do you make sure that the precipitation that takes place is stored to build reservoir levels, and two, to replenish groundwater level, which are depleting at a rapid, dangerous levels in large parts of the country.
Yes.
Number two requirement challenge would be making sure that the seeds are available in good quantity and good quality. We have seen in the past several months how availability of seeds can be a problem. The third challenge to my mind would be how do you make sure that the good rainfall situation does not lead to an unprepared civic municipalities across the country, where you have floods, you have rains, you have drains which are blocked, and you have the menace of rain-related diseases across the country. Now, I think there are three clear challenges. One is the infrastructure challenge of reservoir levels. Two is the agricultural challenge of making sure fertilizers and seeds are adequately available. And third is a civic challenge of when you have good rains, then suddenly you will see that
The
large
city is
number of cities
unprepared, yes.
unprepared, and even the rural India is unprepared, as a result of which you will see the spread of diseases that need to be tackled, and those diseases every year keeps coming, and drains are not cleared.
Yes.
The river beds are not, are not properly, dredging is taking place. So therefore, what you see is the flooding of the plains because the river bed doesn't exist. So therefore, if you are expecting good rains, therefore we need preparatory steps how to welcome those rains
Yes.
in those 4 months.
Absolutely, and that should be on the state level, Himanshu. We do, we were talking about how, the rainwater harvesting as far as irrigation projects are concerned. There has been, of course, a change that we are seeing in certain states like Jharkhand. We see it in certain states like Maharashtra as well to a large extent. You also Rajasthan. There are certain, projects that have, of course, been ushered in. Are they working really as much as, farmers would have liked it to? And is that the way forward?
I think these projects need to work much more. The policy direction is certainly in the right direction. One thing that is very important, which has been neglected for decades, is that the local micro irrigation, the village ponds, they were all silted, filled up, and there is action in trying to renew them. That I think is very important. And in the larger reservoirs, I think we can easily double or triple the number of reservoirs. We just don't have enough reservoirs. We get around 70 to 80% of annual rainfall in these 3 months, and we are not able to store it for a longer period. And related to that, if you have reservoirs, I'm also a big advocate for hydropower. It's a clean, renewable, a very viable source of energy. There have been some problems. So we need much more storage and much more village level micro irrigation and ponds rejuvenation, restoration, or building of new ponds. Because what these ponds do is they also keep a very good moisture level in the fields around that area. It's not just a source of water,
Yes.
but for the overall ecology, it's very, very good. And I think the country needs to prepare itself for much more irregular rainfall. If you see the number of droughts in the last decade or so, not just droughts, weak rainfall, drought, and some very severe droughts like I think 2009, which really ravaged the farms. Even this talk of El Nino, it's happened I think only once or twice in the last 50, 60 years that you have 2 years of strong El Nino, a weak La Nina, and again heading towards El Nino. Now how bad that would be, we don't know yet. Because El Nino, fortunately for us, is a phenomenon which is monitored around the world. The US meteorologists, the Australian meteorologists. So as of now, what they're saying is that forecasts at this time of the year, between February, March, April, they are not very accurate. There's something in the global computer models which does not give you a very accurate forecast of Pacific Ocean temperatures at this stage. So we have to wait and watch. In a month, by June, definitely you'll have a clear
Yes.
picture of.
The IMD does come with a figure in June, and that is something that
but
actually
my
makes.
other point is that we are heading for a very uncertain kind of a weather, as has been shown in the last decade or so.
Yes.
So our general preparedness in terms of irrigation facilities, water conservation, renewal of groundwater, as Mr. Bhattacharya just talked about. We need to go much more in that direction. And also, our farmers, our rural population, who for a few generations were ready to accept any hardship and, think, okay, God wants it this way.
Yes.
Now, they are demanding their rights. And so even politically, it is very important to address their needs and to the extent possible, insulate them from vagaries of weather and try and make them drought proof. This also requires, a relook at what crops are planted where. For example, sugarcane is such a hugely water intensive crop.
Yes.
And it is grown in some of the most water scarce regions, parts of Maharashtra. UP doesn't get good rains.
Yes.
It is something we have inherited from the British period, but
Yes.
ideally sugarcane should be grown perhaps towards eastern India, which has much more rain. Likewise, because of India's food scarcity in the 50s and 60s, we have focused so much on wheat and rice. Now there is a shift. There is a little more pricing incentive for oil seeds, for pulses.
Yes.
But I think that direction we have to go much further. So
Mr. Chaudhary,
it's a huge challenge.
Yes. In fact, it was even during 2014, 15, 16 when we had the drought, of course, staring at us. That was a time when even the sugarcane was definitely one thing that was brought up several times. about how, the government and even farmers, or for that matter, several agencies should be looking at how to change the way, agriculture is done in our country. But there hasn't been much of a change really in that pattern. So in that sense, when we talk about being prepared, when we talk about what can we do to make the most of the monsoons, what can we do, this definitely adds to that as well, isn't it?
On one side,
Yeah.
we are raising the question that more water is being used in the sugarcane crops. On another side, we are importing the raw sugar. We should make our planning first. After independence, any government have not been finalized any policy of crop pattern at district level. How much irrigation facility available? What is the crop pattern? What is the need of the consumer? How much we have to produce? Is there any policy have been framed till today? No, not at all. Farmers are using land as their own wish, as our scientists, our bureaucrats, our policymakers have advised them that you go ahead for paddy, you go ahead for wheat, you go ahead for sugarcane. You have to change this variety from this variety.
Yes.
It will increase the more sugar recovery. It will give the more productivity. The farmer use that availability of varieties. And I don't agree on wheat and paddy question, because the country's food security is the main currency of this country. If we will lost our food security to the big corporates, then where we will stand? How we have to pay in dollars for our food? We can't compromise on that. Yes, pattern should be used. It should be changed as per the need of the country. Local produce, local procurement, local supply, then come to the out of state. One thing that water reservoirs should be used properly.
Yes.
And groundwater depleting day by day, it should be recharged on war footing. It's a bank. Water bank is the groundwater only. Reservoir is not sufficient. And we have not worked to recharge the groundwater level. As per our need of the country, we have not worked. Now, from the last 2 years, the Prime Minister irrigation scheme, in Manrega, 5 lakh local water bodies, wells, and small farmers in their own field. It's a very impressive, very effective.
That's something we're seeing in Jharkhand.
Micro irrigation level. It's increasing. The more than 20 lakh hectare area have increased in agriculture irrigation without any large investment. It's a micro irrigation will increase the more productivity. It's a more helpful, but groundwater should be charged. That is the only way. I think that more than 60% water is still it's going waste in sea. It should be reserved. It should be used to recharge the groundwater. We can plan in our big rivers where the water is coming from Himalayas, from northeast as well as from Nepal side. We are not procuring that water. We should use that water through making the big bores in those rivers from that side where water comes in huge quantity. Then groundwater level will be recharged. Second thing, that local ponds were being misused.
Yeah, just as being pointed out by
Yeah,
Himanshu.
and river beds have been captured by the people. It should be vacated.
So Dr. Haque, I can see you wanting to add into this as well. We know what should be done, but why is it that it doesn't get done? Why is it that 91 reservoirs, I have the number here, 91 major reservoirs still need to be filled to normal levels? That still needs to be done. And the monsoons will come and we don't know if that will actually get done as well. And that is the worry, isn't it?
Certainly, that has been the worry throughout, because on average we have seen even in the best years where there was heavy rainfall. As I said, in some years where even 106% above the normal, percentage of the normal rainfall. In those years also, the average, availability of water in those reservoirs was below optimum. So this is an issue which needs to be addressed on priority basis through appropriate not only just irrigation, but water harvesting and micro irrigation, or improving irrigation use efficiency and things like that. So there are ways to do it.
Yes.
But somehow, unfortunately, in the past, that has not been the priority of the government. When there is some serious problem, drought and things like that, then only they start thinking, and then immediately after they forget. This is one. Secondly, I think regarding the cropping patterns, I think everybody said something about wheat, paddy and sugarcane. The problem is, it is the market which gives the signal. Government cannot really do much about it. Why I am saying this? Farmers, if they get a better returns from sugarcane than from, say, paddy, wheat, rotation or some other crops, then they will go for sugarcane. This is the normal practice all over the world, and it cannot be an exception here. And you cannot, nowhere in the world this is imposed as on today, that you do grow only this and not that. You have to decide, see if you can really manipulate market. And market today is not decided again by local demand and supply situation, also by global factors, demand and supply situations in the globe. So this is one. Second thing is, when you talk of food security, I agree with you that food security should not be compromised. But then our productivity level currently, if you see, of both rice and wheat is abnormally very low, excepting a few pockets of the country. Say for instance, paddy. Paddy is predominantly grown in the whole of eastern India and most of southern India. And in the eastern India, which gets plenty of rain otherwise normally, there also the average productivity of paddy is very low, very, very low. In fact, 1/3 of whatever you are getting in Punjab and Haryana, because of irrigation and non-irrigation kind of situations. So appropriate irrigation and water management, flood control and flood management in the eastern India will be the key to improve productivity, along with other support system that the government should have. The government's focus was missing so far. Hopefully this government will try to give some focus on the eastern India, because eastern India can be the food bowl of India. Now currently, if the average yield is 2 tons, it can go up to normally with the existing technology up to 6 tons per hectare, and 3 times improvement in the yield and production. So that helps you a lot. Similarly, there are other crops where the average productivity is very low. We have about 60 million hectares of fallow land. Can you imagine? Because of our policy failure, which I am currently dealing with, land leasing. Like somebody is not able to cultivate any piece of land, and he keeps it fallow, and we don't allow them to cultivate that piece of land because there are legal restrictions on land leasing. So everybody is afraid to lease out land because of the fear of losing land right if he leases out illegally. So those things need to be addressed. So currently the focus of this government is to go for that kind of legal institutional reforms, along with infrastructural support, micro irrigation, market. We are talking of e-market, bringing next year itself about 585 markets in an integrated way. We call it national market. So those things will help.
Very quickly, Mr. Bhattacharya,
I mean, you have any specific? What I wanted to say was this, that you talked about crop pattern, and I entirely agree with Dr. Haque that crop pattern cannot be changed by diktat from Krishi Bhavan in Delhi. Crop pattern will change by market responses. A classic example is the pulses production this year. I mean, the moment you raise the minimum price for pulses, the farmer got the signal, and production is around 4 to 6 million tons more. Now this is, there could be no further proof of this this principle, the maxim that moment you give the right price signals, the farmer will catch it and you'll see a rise in production. So therefore, the first thing I'll endorse Dr. Haque's point that the market principles are far superior to Krishi Bhavan dictated cropping pattern across the country, which is trying to rule the country from 36,000 feet, which is not on. Number two is related to what Dr. Haque said about productivity, and I'll go to the next stage, that it is not just productivity. The agriculture, the rains are important for agriculture, but agriculture is such a sector that is dependent and determined by so many other factors. And one of those factors is, one is the really pathetically poor productivity levels, and second, the over dependence of more number of people than are required in 1 acre of land. Now, I think this is not agriculture's fault, but it is the economy's fault that for the last 70 years, we have not been able to take people who should not be in agriculture, take them away and find jobs and
for
avenues
them.
for them in tertiary sectors.
Yes.
And for that you need
Indian
reskilling and
agriculture
everything.
contributes for 13% of GDP, and the sector employs about 50% of
So
the
therefore,
Indian
there's
labour.
over dependence.
Yes.
And the third point, which is ideally needed to get the to the benefit of rains, will percolate down to the agriculture sector more if we make sure that agriculture just doesn't remain agriculture, but diversify into horticulture,
Yes.
into allied food processing sector.
Yeah,
So therefore,
I'm running short of time, Mr.
that kind
Bhattacharya.
of diversification.
Absolutely. And this brings us to this point, Himanshu, very quickly from you. Considering how the Indian economy actually looks forward to the monsoons, to a large extent, a lot of, points, a lot of pointers coming in from the monsoons. Just by yesterday's prediction by the IMD, you see even the banking sector to some extent heaving a sigh of relief. This is the kind of indications that we're getting. But considering all that, there's so little that that government, successive governments have done to try and really capitalize on a good monsoon.
Yeah, see, for so many decades, agriculture has been one of the neglected sectors. I think little after independence, industry and agriculture were roughly half-half in India, and it's been falling. Even liberalization time in the early 90s, agriculture would have been close to 30% of the economy. Now it's come down to 13. Whereas agriculture, rural population, which is affected by monsoon, is the place where you sell cars, whether it's your sale of consumer goods, cosmetics,
Yes.
tractors, farm equipment. So its role in the economy is phenomenal. And there's a huge irony that, while it is 13% of the economy, it is, I think, 60 to 70% of the workforce. So, when such statistics, what they tell you is that a huge number of people are getting a shrinking share of the economy, which is neither economically good nor politically good. So, one should expect a lot more towards agriculture. And there's one more problem which needs to be highlighted is the small size of agri holdings. There has to be some solution to that. There are some farmer groups who try to work in a wider area. There are efforts for contract farming. A lot needs to be done because as agricultural holdings shrinks, land ownership, and it gets divided between brothers and over generations, there's not much scope. When we compare productivity, we're talking of Western countries, US.
Absolutely. So some good points here, some good suggestions
they have
definitely
such
been made.
huge
Thank you so
land
much.
holdings.
I'm so sorry, Himanshu, I have to cut you out. My producer is telling me I need to wind it up now. But thank you so much to four of you for joining me here on this debate. And definitely in June, we'll be seeing perhaps another one of this. But thanks so much for joining us here on The Big Picture. That's it for the moment.